Welcome back to Echo Ridge and the second episode of our Absolute Beginner's Guide for Civilization 6. We're going to continue right where we left off. Looks like we're ready for our next turn. Notice our scout now went down to 5 turns remaining and our population went down to 7 turns remaining. But because we have our science being researched, our civics being researched, the city of Washington is currently producing, the only thing available to us is to move our unit. Taking a trip over towards the orange because I knew this way was going to be blocked a little bit by the lake. We can see we found Lake Erie, another couple mountain tiles, another wonderful silk tile, which makes me wonder, considering there's a nice wheat resource tile, if there'd be another good city location here. So we're going to move this warrior up through here. I can pre-queue where I want them to go, and next turn they'll sort of automatically move there. But again, I don't like to do that, because we never know what's inside the fog of war. And as a matter of fact, we've revealed another luxury resource, some more silk, and 2 wheat tiles, not to mention a source of fresh water. So I think this is going to be another great city location. In exploring strategies, everybody does it a little bit differently, and depending on your game, you may choose to do it a little differently. One of those strategies is doing concentric circles around Washington to slowly unveil the area around. Another one, especially if you're on a coastal map, is to sort of hug the coast and go around the outside to fully reveal what kind of landmass you're sitting on. In this case, I have this scout being produced, so I'm going to send them in one direction and this warrior in another, strategically deciding where we're going to go. Oh, happy day, we have found our first city-state. Time for some more education. All right, hold on to your socks, because with the introduction of city-states, we're going to get into diplomacy and envoys and all sorts of other things. A city-state is like a minor civilization. They operate like an enemy AI, with a notable difference is they will never expand, whereas other civilizations will. When we click on Cardiff, we're given a lot of different information. We can declare war against the city-state, and we can also pay the city-state for its military, but only if we are something called the suzerain. A suzerain is the civilization that they owe their fealty to, and you're given different bonuses for being the suzerain of the city-state. Now, notably, on this map, there's probably 8 different city-states. There can be as many as 20, 24 city-states on a map, depending on how large it is. Next, we see that we have sent 1 envoy. We didn't manually send it. Cardiff actually just gave it to us. And the reason why is because we're the first major civilization to meet them. So we earned an envoy there. Now, because we have 1 envoy, we've unlocked an ability. We're going to get +1 production in the capital and in every city with a workshop building when producing wonders, buildings, and districts. So a little bit to unpack there. We are getting +1 production in the capital, but when we go over to Washington, you can see that it still says we only have 5. And that's because it's only when we're producing wonders, buildings, and districts. Now, if we manage to get 3 envoys, we'll get +2 production in every city with a factory or a consulate building when again producing wonders, buildings, and districts. But normally most powerfully is the suzerain bonus. If you have at least 3 envoys and more envoys than any other civilization, you're going to get Cardiff's unique bonus, and that's that cities receive +2 power for every harbor building. Additionally, as a suzerain, and this applies to all city-states, we're going to gain +1 diplomatic favor for every turn. The city-state's going to follow us into war. The land around the city-state becomes friendly territory, which means our units are going to be able to move there. We'll be able to heal there as if it was our own territory, and we can even upgrade our units within our territory. The reason why it's saying that is because if we research the technology for swordsmen, we'll then be able to upgrade this warrior into a swordsman. But we can't do it out here in the wilderness. But if we are the suzerain of a city-state, we can then walk into that territory and do it. Additionally, when it comes to hit points, when a unit becomes damaged, we can heal them. And the default values for healing is 20 hit points per turn if they're in a district, such as our city center, 15 if we're just in friendly territory, 10 if we're in neutral territory, and only 5 if we're in enemy territory per turn. So all the tiles here in Cardiff would count as friendly territory, so we would heal at the 15 hit points per turn. Additionally, our builders can actually improve some of the city-state tiles for them, and there are some unique situations where you will want to do that. We'll also gain visibility of 3 tiles around the city-state, so the strategic implications of that, just based on that vision, can be significant. And then, like we already said, we will be able to levy their military, which means we can pay X amount of gold and take all their military units and use them as we see fit for 30 turns. And then lastly, we also gain ownership of all the city-state's luxury resources. Now, right now, it says there's none currently available. It's because Cardiff doesn't built any builders, and they don't actually have any luxuries sitting around them. But notice when we go to our Civilopedia and click on the city-state button, there are a lot of city-states. And because so many of them have different bonuses, the strategic implications are huge. For instance, here in Brussels, which is also an industrial city-state, notice that the industrial city-state bonuses are the same, but their suzerain bonuses that our cities get plus 15% production towards wonders. Over in Hong Kong, also an industrial city-state, our cities would get plus 20% production towards city projects. Also, as an FYI in the Civilopedia, there's always some nice historical context when you look up different civilizations, leaders, or even city-states. They're well written, and I recommend giving them a read when you're just spending a lazy afternoon enjoying some Civ. But notice if I go down to a scientific city-state, let's say Geneva, the scientific city-states bonuses are different. For instance, +1 science in the capital and in every library building. And Geneva's specific suzerain bonus is our cities earn plus 15% science when we're not at war. And you can imagine these unique suzerain bonuses can have a big impact on your civilization. And they're not always just bonus resources. For instance, when you're the suzerain of Lahore, we get access to a unique unit called the Nihang. Or Mogadishu, which is a trade city-state, so their bonuses are always wrapped around gold, but their unique suzerain bonus is that our trader units are immune from being plundered on water tiles. But back to Cardiff, because we have the one envoy, we will get production bonuses, but only when building wonders, buildings, and districts. Considering we only have a 5 production, that's a 20% bonus whenever we decide to start building, for instance, this monument. Lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit more on this diplomatic favor. When you're the suzerain of a city-state, you're going to get the 1 diplomatic favor every turn. And that's the resource up here. And what this is another resource that we're going to be able to spend by either trading it with players or using it in sessions of the World Congress. I'll show you one of those a little bit later. Lastly with Cardiff, notice they have a little quest icon up here. And if we click on them, we can then click on quests and then see. This quest is if we trigger the Eureka moment for bronze working technology, they will give us another envoy. Well, in order to get the Eureka for bronze working, we need to kill 3 barbarians. So now, when we get that boost, not only will we be reducing the amount of time it takes to research bronze working, we'll also be making Cardiff happy, so it's basically a 2-for-1. Of note, city-states get new quests every age. Right now, we're in the ancient era, so that quest will change once we're in the classical era. Our warrior has unearthed another tribal village, so we're going to take the opportunity to go scoop that up. And in this case, the tribal village gave us a Eureka. This one is the Eureka for wheel. Not only that, but we also got another era score for finding the village itself. And if we go into our technology tree, we can see in fact that the wheel was boosted. Even though we didn't mine a resource, but because the village gave it to us. So now, instead of taking 32 turns, like all the techs would in this area, it's only going to take 20. Another note, since we were talking about ages, is when we do pass into the classical era, the earlier technologies will become a little cheaper. Over in Washington, our scout has finished. Notice they have the same 100 health, like most units, but they have a special ability that reveals stealth units on the map within sight range. They also have a movement of 3, and hence the reason through these flat lands, we're able to move 3 full tiles, enough to where we'll be able to get this second travel village. And they granted us a recon unit, which is great because that means we have another scout that we can do more exploration with. And we find another tribal village. These tribal villages can give you big boosts in the early part of the game if your scouting is significantly better than the enemy AIs. For instance, look what's happened just in 2 turns. We got a free unit from the tribal village here, and we got a free Eureka from the tribal village here. And they both gave us +1 to era score. Now we only need 8 more left to avoid a Dark Age. The decision on what to produce next, as we've talked about before, is heavily dependent on what we see. If I would have met an enemy AI or some barbarians, I would definitely be building a slinger or a warrior. But because we haven't, I'm feeling a little safe, so I think I might be able to go for a builder or a monument. Now we know mining is going to be done in 4 turns, and it would be nice to have a builder by that time. We also could take the time to build the monument. Now the monument is going to give us +1 loyalty per turn, and if the city's already at maximum loyalty, an additional +1 culture. And I think I'd really like to grow the culture a little bit, remembering that culture causes our borders to grow. So I think we will grab the monument. Now notice, as soon as we started producing the monument, we have 6 production, +1 towards buildings, districts, and wonders being provided to us from Cardiff. Also on the exploration front, since it seems that we've reached the coastline, I'm going to take this warrior and start exploring down the coast. Now this is interesting indeed. Whenever you start seeing ice caps like this, it tells me we're probably towards the bottom of the map, which in terms of exploration now signifies a few different things. The rest of the world is probably up this way and this way. So after a quick scout down here, I'm going to turn my sights on getting out here as fast as possible to try to beat the enemy civilizations to all the wonderful village huts, or what some people like to call goody huts. It also gives us an opportunity to meet new city-states, and remember, if you're the first person to meet the city-state, you get a free envoy. Our scout, when coming up on this village, has discovered a barbarian scout. Now, barbarian scouts are very important to look out for, because what this scout's mission is to find your cities. Once they find your city, they will then report back to their barbarian camp, which will then start sending barbarian units towards your city. So moving down here accomplishes a couple of things. One, this barbarian is not going to be able to pass, so they'll either try to attack this scout or they'll turn around. Either way, we know that this scout has a vision of about 2, because our scout has a vision of 2, so they can't see Washington yet. They'll also get a little symbol over them once they've spotted your city. We're going to take our scout, move it into the goody hut. Oh, what a boon. We were just given another free unit, and this time it's a builder. Now, builders by default come with 3 builds. And by default, they only start with the ability to remove other features or build the farm improvement. The farm improvement is going to give us +1 food, helping us grow, and 0.5 housing. So I think we will create a couple of farms over here, but I'm going to want to save 1 build to be able to put a quarry on this stone. We'll click the build improvement farm, and now we have 3 food on this tile. If we take a look back at Washington and go into manage citizens, if I were to click, like we showed before, concentrate on growth, notice it's now concentrating over here. So we will grow a little bit faster, but look what happened to our monument since we're not getting the nice production over here from this tile. So just in case, I'm going to go ahead and lock in the citizen working on this tile. What this means is the AI will not be able to move it around. I also don't mind, but you can bet once we get that second population, the AI is probably going to make them work this wonderful farm tile. On our next turn, our borders have expanded, and in this case, towards Lake Huron. And we are getting a massive 2 science and 2 culture off of this Grassland Hills. Well, wait a minute, Echo. I thought Grassland Hills provided 2 food and 1 production. They do. And this is where we're going to talk about civilizations, their leaders, and their unique abilities. We're playing as Teddy Roosevelt. We click on their icon, we get to see their features and abilities. Now there's 2 separate features and abilities here. One is going to come from Teddy Roosevelt, the other is going to come from the American Empire. Teddy Roosevelt's unique ability is Antiquities and Parks. Breathtaking tiles adjacent to a natural wonder or a mountain receive +2 science. Breathtaking tiles adjacent to either a wonder or woods, +2 culture, and all tiles in the city with a national park are +1 appeal. If we go to the Civilopedia into the Civilizations and Leaders pane, all your civilizations are listed. For instance, if we click Nubia, and it'll tell you what their unique ability is. Additionally, all the leaders are listed, and you can do the same. Notice that Teddy Roosevelt's unique ability was the Antiquities and Park. And here we can click on America, and it shows us the Founding Fathers' unique ability, and it also shows us the special units and infrastructure that are unique to America. In this case, the P-51 Mustang and the film studio. So because this tile has a breathtaking appeal and it's next to a woods, it's receiving +2 culture. Because this tile is breathtaking and it's next to a mountain, it's getting +2 science. When we say breathtaking, we're talking about the tile's appeal. In other words, how nice it is. A lot of things you do on this map are going to impact the appeal of tiles. We can go down into one of our map lenses and look at the appeal, and this might help us, based on Teddy Roosevelt's unique ability, change what we want to do with these tiles. For instance, this tile here is breathtaking, as is this one. This one's next to a woods, which means it would get +2 culture. This one is next to a mountain, which means it would get +2 science. So it makes these tiles even more valuable. So we might consider now putting a city right here because A, it's coastal, which means if we found a city on the coast, we'll get the boost for sailing, but it's also next to a lake. So it has a source of fresh water. And as we've seen, when you found cities on fresh water, they get the bonus to housing. So I'm going to take my map tax and add another possible city location right here. Of note, you cannot found a city that is closer than 3 tiles away. So it would be impossible to found a city here because of Washington's location. But more on that Teddy Roosevelt ability, it now sort of unlocks the strategy that if we can make our tiles breathtaking, every single tile next to a mountain, woods, wonder, or a natural wonder would receive bonus culture and bonus science. And it can be pretty powerful. Now, the AI, as I predicted, is going to want to work this 3 food tile. But I'd rather work the 2 food, 2 science, 2 culture, and 1 production. So that's what we're going to do. And now, instead of getting 3 science per turn, we're getting 5. So we've almost doubled our science production, and we have more than doubled our culture for the cost of 1 food. But considering we're making up for that with another bonus production is absolutely wonderful. Our scout has revealed that barbarian camp that this scout belongs to. Notice that they did reverse, and now they're heading straight towards Washington. I'm going to try to take this scout and head off the pass, because if they get any closer, they're going to spot Washington, and this barbarian camp is going to start sending more and more units over here. And our warrior is pretty much out of position. On our next turn, we've completed some research, and it also reminds us what we've gained by completing, in this case, mining. The ability to build mines, the ability to build quarries, and allows the chopping of woods and the harvesting of copper. More on that in a moment, but I wanted to highlight the fact that this scout has now spotted our city. So I'm going to try to make sure they don't make it back to their encampment by blocking the pass here, finding another delicious goodie hut, and then also starting to attack. Now, when we go into attack, our unit pane gives us a prediction of how that attack looks. Now, in this case, we are both scouts, and neither one of us have a tactical advantage based on our terrain. So I'm just going to come straight out and attack them. And there's a couple of reasons why. First is it's going to give us experience. And there's that beautiful +4 experience. We did lose 25 health, as did the enemy, but that 4 experience got us closer to getting to level 2. When we do get a promotion, we're going to be able to heal. I'm also feeling pretty confident because I'm sitting in woods. And if this scout were to try to attack me, we would get a defensive advantage because we were in the woods. It's also time for us, since we completed mining, to choose what we want to research next. We have a couple of options available to us. Notice our advisors think we should go for pottery, and other advisors think we should go for astrology. Another option would be going towards wheel because we have it boosted, so we'd get us further along the tech tree, unlocking the heavy chariot, which could come in handy for much cheaper. All the other techs are full cost. In this case, I'm going to go towards irrigation because I want to unlock the ability of getting plantations. Because once we do, we'll be able to improve this cotton tile. Now we could start working this cotton tile right now, gaining 2 food and 3 gold. When we work the cotton tile, we gain access to the luxury resource. Not to mention another plus 2 gold for having the plantation. Now plantations also give 0.5 housing as well. And then further down the line, as we grow in the tech tree, you can see that we'll unlock more food, more gold, and possibly, depending on what your civ is, even production. So because we clicked on irrigation, it's going to go through pottery, and then we'll finally start researching irrigation. Much quicker now, by the way, considering we now have 5 science per turn. Our next turn began with the fact that we completed our first civic, and that's the code of laws we talked about earlier. This is a big deal for us because it unlocks another core aspect of civilization by use of these policy cards. Whenever you complete a civic, you have the opportunity to change policies. As a matter of fact, you can change policies any turn you want, but there'll be a gold cost. But on the turn that you complete a civic, it's for free. Now these civic policies represent your government's policies. Before we assign these, let's go check out our government. We are currently a chiefdom. Because we're a chiefdom, we're gaining 1 influence point per turn, and at 100 points, we're going to earn 1 envoy. We're also gaining 0 diplomatic favor per turn. But if we go over into the view governments, when we start unlocking other government types by advancing through our civics tree, notice all the classical era governments give us 1 diplomatic favor and 3 influence per turn. Whereas if we get all the way out to digital democracy, we're going to be gaining 4 diplomatic favor, and we're going to gain 9 influence per turn, and at 250 points, we're going to earn 4 envoys. Also notice that each of the governments have different symbols in here. These are card slots. Notice that as a chiefdom, we have 2 card slots. Classical Republic, we have 4. Whereas out in communism or fascism, we have a lot. Now there are 4 types of policies: military, economic, diplomatic, and wildcard. An American ability is the Founding Fathers. All of our diplomatic policy slots are converted to wildcard slots, and we're getting +1 diplomatic favor for every wildcard slot in the government. So it kind of tells you we want to focus on governments with a lot of diplomatic policy slots because it'll give us more wildcard slots and then more diplomatic favor. Now, as a chiefdom, we always had these slots, but we didn't have any cards to put into them until we researched code and laws. So now we have some choices. Notice that only military cards can go into military slots, and only economic cards can go into economic slots. In this case, I think we're getting plenty of production in Washington, so I'm going to go for God King. This is going to give us access to getting +1 faith per turn, which will allow us to advance towards unlocking a pantheon. More on that in a little bit. And then we can decide whether or not we want survey or discipline. Considering we know we're going to be fighting some barbarians that we found, I'm thinking the +5 combat strength when fighting barbarians would be more useful than the double experience of recon units. We've already gotten some decent experience from our scouts just by virtue of fighting the barbarians. Once we've selected the cards, we can then confirm policies. Now when we attack the scout, notice we're getting +5 advantage because we're fighting barbarians. Also notice that our strength is a little lower because our unit is damaged. Also notice that the enemy scout is in that fortified position, getting a +6 defense. But this looks to be a major victory, so we'll definitely go ahead and kill the enemy scout. Now, an important note like we talked about before, we heal slower in neutral territory than we do in our own friendly territory. So in this case, it might make sense to move our scout back to our friendly territory and then start healing. You'll have to make the decision on whether or not it's more advantageous to move back to your territory to heal or just to heal in place. Remember our builder here? That we were going to start building quarries and mines? Well, we've changed our mind. And there's a specific reason. Remember, we're getting this bonus, science and culture, because this tile's appeal is breathtaking. Back to the Civilopedia, if we type in mine, you'll see that the mine causes -1 to appeal, but it's only to adjacent tiles. And it's identical for the quarry. So if I were to build this quarry here, it would cause this tile's appeal to go down by 1, causing it no longer to be breathtaking. It would only be charming, which is 3 appeal. So I'm going to build the mine on this tile here, which then boosts craftsmanship instead of building a quarry over here. Back to our civics tree, because we finished codes and laws, Noticed we did get that boost of craftsmanship for improving 3 tiles with that builder. Craftsmanship will give us plus 30% production towards builders and plus 50% production towards ancient and classical era melee, anti-cavalry, and range units. But because it's boosted, I'd rather research this and try to wait until I discover that second continent before going towards foreign trade. Our warrior has discovered another barbarian encampment. This one has a spearman in it as well, and also a naval unit called a galley. The galley is a melee naval unit, so I'm not too worried about it coming up on shore and hurting our warrior. Now, because our warrior gets bonuses towards anti-cavalry units, and we have the policy card that gives us advantage towards barbarians, this is a pretty good fight. What I'm going to have to do, though, is attack it a few times, and then promote my unit once we get enough experience to heal. I'll show you that in a few minutes as well. Notice that the combat was much quicker that time. Over in your game options, you can enable quick combat and quick movement. I disabled it at the beginning just so you can see how the units move naturally, but it really does speed up gameplay. But to be honest, whenever I'm not recording videos, I do like to disable at least quick combat just so I can enjoy it a little bit more. We've completed pottery, which has given us access to the granary building, the great bath, which is a wonder, and unlocks the special ability of allowing harvesting of bonus resources improved by farms. Remember I told you earlier that districts are going to be built on these tiles here? Well, the same goes for wonders. Because we unlocked the Great Bath, we have the ability to put it down. Notice if we were to try to change the production off of this monument, which we're not going to do, but I did want to highlight this, and select the Great Bath, it would take us 23 turns, but at the end, we'd have a pretty powerful wonder. The Great Bath prevents floodplain tiles along the river from taking flood damage, although they'll still get the food and production bonuses from flooding, and the floodplain tiles belonging to the city gain +1 faith each time there's a flood mitigated. It talks about floods a lot, like we were talking about earlier, because of these floodplain tiles. Whenever a natural disaster happens, such as a flood, it will damage any improvements that you have on the tile, like farms. But afterwards, the tiles will be more valuable. For instance, instead of having 2 food, they'll have 3. But if we select Great Bath, it shows us the tile that we have, which I purchased by clicking these buttons for 50 gold just to show you this example. It shows us which tile it is eligible to go in based on the requirements of the wonder. And then once we click the tile, our wonder begins being built. It'll be the same way when it comes to districts. A couple turns later into attacking this encampment, notice that both the spearman and the warrior are pretty beat up. I'm going to take the opportunity to heal a couple of turns before I finish off the encampment. If we had just a bit more experience, we could have used a promotion to heal because you heal 50 points when you do take a promotion. But to be safe, I'm just going to go ahead and heal up for a turn or two and then finish off the encampment. We've completed the monument in Washington, and there it is. Now we have the option to figure out what we want to produce in Washington. We could go for the granary, which gives us +1 food and 2 housing, but we have plenty of housing and we're doing decent on food. So in this case, I think it is time for our civilization to expand by producing a settler. It's going to take 11 turns, but after which we'll be able to settle another city. We've also completed another civic in craftsmanship, and because I'm getting ready to go to attack that barbarian encampment, I think it's time for me to unlock military tradition, because it'll give all of our combat units flanking and support combat bonuses. Now granted, it's going to take 9 turns, but notice what the boost is to clear a barbarian outpost. I'm thinking we're going to be able to clear this barbarian outpost in 2 turns, and our 2 units will then be able to support each other in combat. I had completely forgotten about this wonderful goodie hut. Want to make sure we grab it. Notice there's another scout. And because scout units get experience just by exploring, we've also received a promotion we'll be able to do next turn. And we've unlocked another envoy from that villager. Now, because the difference between 1 and 2 envoys doesn't really do anything for us, our next bonus doesn't happen until we get 3 envoys, I'm going to hold on to this spare envoy, because perhaps we'll meet another city-state. Our warrior, because of that last attack, also received a promotion. So now you have the choice. Do we promote the unit, which is an action, so they will not be able to attack the barbarian encampment or move this turn? We could move and then promote, just like you can move and then attack. Or we could sacrifice the promotion for now just to be able to clear the encampment. because I've shown what kind of bonuses we're going to be able to get by doing it. But take note, when I attack and destroy this encampment, I'm not going to be able to earn any experience because we're capped out until we promote to level 2. We'll destroy the encampment, boosting us towards military tradition as expected. And here on the next turn, our warrior is able to promote. Now, unit promotions will be different based on the class of unit. The warrior is a melee unit, so warriors, swordsmen, infantry will all have the same promotions. In this case, I like Battle Cry, which is +7 combat strength versus melee and range units. Notice we got 50 hit points, which healed us up a little bit, and now we can continue on with our scouting. Speaking of scouts, our scouts have discovered a barbarian slinger that has appeared outside this encampment. Remember, slingers are a range unit, so their range strength is a 15, but their melee strength is a 5. So we'll be able to take quick work of them with our scouts. Once again, it may be advantageous to delay this promotion from this scout to be able to destroy the slinger so they can't rain their rocks down on our parade. And with killing a barbarian slinger, we've earned the Eureka for bronze working. For the simple reason, we've killed 3 barbarians. But because we boosted bronze working, remember that was a Cardiff quest, we've received another envoy. Remember when we were banking our envoys? Well, now we'll be able to get the 3rd envoy, which is not only going to be able to give us that better bonus if and when we ever get a factory or a consulate, but we're also going to gain suzerain of the city-state. Right now, it's just going to give us some vision and another diplomatic favor per turn. And also because we were the Cardiff's first suzerain, we got +2 era score. And look at the visibility we've unlocked. There's also a goody hut here, and we found another barbarian encampment too. On the subject of promotions, these are the scout promotions. I think in this case, we have a lot more hilly terrain around here, so we're going to go with Alpine. We have finally completed military tradition, which is wonderful, because now we'll get flanking and support combat bonuses. So when I highlight as if I'm about to attack this spearman, notice our scout is getting a +2 flanking bonus, because we have 2 units adjacent to the spearman. Now, I don't ever recommend going 2 scouts versus the spearman. I'll probably just bring up the warrior and finish off the encampment that way, because a fortified spearman has over a 30 combat strength and we only have 12. But I did want to highlight this just to show you the flanking bonuses. Our next civic, because I haven't met any other empires yet, I'm going to head towards state workforce. Otherwise, I'd probably go foreign trade early empire, because I'd like to be able to unlock our government plaza, which is a district. We've finished irrigation, giving us access to the plantation. So after this settler, we'll probably work on a builder to be able to upgrade our cotton. That'll about do it for our second video in this Absolute Beginner's Guide. I hope you're enjoying the series and looking forward to the final episode next. I'm also looking forward to seeing what you have to say in the comments below. So until next time, much love, happy gaming, and I'll talk to you soon.